Hello and welcome to Real Talk. I am Anele Mdoda. There are a few experiences in life that are rewarding, challenging, and life-changing as bringing a life into the world. Most people looking to conceive wouldn't think twice about what it entails, as it's perceived to be as easy as 1, 2, 3. But for some, scientific intervention is needed to assist in the process of conception. Today, we've got an array of experts shedding light on some of the assisted reproductive methods available thanks to modern medicine, from in vitro fertilization to surrogacy, as well as sperm and egg donation. We're unpacking it all for you. Joining me first is reproductive medicine specialist at MedFem Fertility Clinic, Dr. Nicholas Clark. Doctor.
Hello.
Can I call you Nicholas? I'm joking. I'm joking. No. The doctor thing is important. I'm going for doctor. Perfect. So what I wanted to know is, when it comes to science, what are the numbers that are out there, like in terms of conceiving? So, like, what does science say is easy about reproductive methods?
I think it's a very difficult question to answer, because most of the data we have is going to be based on who comes to see us with a problem, and to some degree that depends on who's able to come to see us. And obviously there are many people in this country who may have a problem but may not be able to seek medical care. So to get accurate statistics about who has a problem, who needs assistance, is quite difficult. We know it's a significant number of people, and for a variety of reasons, which I'm sure we'll talk about as we go along.
So if there isn't a problem and there isn't an issue, how easy should it be to conceive then? Like once off, twice off, 3 times, 9 times, 20 times?
Well, I think one of the key factors is at what point in life one tries to conceive. So young people generally are going to conceive easier. So if you look at fertility issues, they tend to increase significantly with age. And therefore, again, if you look at populations, you'll see that people who live in some of the poorer populations, fertility is not an issue because they're having children earlier. I mean, not an issue, but the percentages are going to be different. Whereas if you look in the other populations where maybe people are waiting later in life to have children, then their numbers are going to be decreased. So in theory, in the fertile years, at a relatively young age, whatever that might be, 20s, then conception rates are high. There's a significant change at certain points in life. There are sort of ages where we see a natural change. One of the problems is that the fertility window in human beings has remained pretty constant, at the same time as people obviously living longer and living healthier, which is a relatively new, in terms of our evolutionary history, it's a relatively new or short time that's been the case. So, it is a big challenge for people who are generally fit and healthy till much later age.
So, with the couples that I've spoken to who have struggled to conceive, and it's always, it's the same. It's the blueprint. They're like, oh, we tried for so long and we decided, let's go and see a professional. And so long could be 2 years or 3 years. In your opinion, how quickly, if we're trying to conceive, how quickly should we seek professional help?
We have very clear information about that. So if you, looking at specific figures, if you look at a couple and the female is under the age of 35, something like 80% of them should have conceived by 6 months of trying.
Okay.
So we know that if somebody hasn't conceived within 6 months, there's potentially a problem. We tend to say to younger people, so under the age of 35, maybe to wait for 12 months, but after 12 months the conception rate's low. It's 14% per year or something, and it declines after that. If they're over the age of 35, then we would tell them to seek advice after 6 months of not falling pregnant. 2 years is a long time to wait. Doesn't mean they will need treatment or that they won't conceive during that time, but at least it gets the basics sorted out to make sure there isn't a problem. If somebody suspects a problem, or they know they have a problem, then obviously they're not going to wait for a long period of time. It's really interesting. One of the biggest challenges we face is this waiting period, where people will come after not just 2 years but 10 years, by which time they've moved into a group that is a lot more difficult to treat. And at the end of the day, the age at which you treat, particularly the female age at which you treat, determines the success. The treatments are the same. There's 3 ways to fall pregnant. You either conceive naturally, you conceive through artificial insemination, or you conceive through IVF, assisted reproduction. There's nothing else. So in a sense, the treatments remain the same, the ages change, the success rates change.
So what you're trying to tell me is that term every woman hates, the biological clock is ticking. Like, that starts getting loud around 35.
Yes, yes, and I think, you know, using the word infertility is dramatic. Most of the people we see are subfertile. They're not people who cannot fall pregnant. They just are not falling pregnant.
They need help.
So they may fall pregnant spontaneously when you know, whilst you are investigating them. They may fall pregnant by optimizing them. You know, they are not unable to conceive. So seeking advice doesn't mean that you have to undergo some sort of treatment. It may literally be advice. So one would, you know, urge people really to have a lower threshold, at least to get information. There's a big problem because many people have no real idea of what's normal. You know, it's amazing how many people really don't, you know, a fundamental part of our reason to be, and people have no idea. They don't know how frequently they should be active. They don't know what time in the cycle they should be active, all of these sorts of things. And why should they be if they've not been educated to know those sorts of things? We should be teaching them. So, yeah, people shouldn't be shy to at least seek advice if they're worried.
So you mentioned 3 ways in which you can fall pregnant: naturally,
Yes.
artificial insemination,
Yes.
and IVF.
Correct, yeah.
Now, it's funny you say people don't know what's normal, and I know that you don't wake up knowing these things, but for me, artificial insemination and IVF, same WhatsApp group, I thought they were basically the same thing. Can you please break it down for me and tell me what the differences are?
So artificial insemination is a technique whereby you take a sperm sample from the male, you prepare the sperm sample in a particular way, and then we inject that sample into the womb. So it's still a natural conception in the sense that the sperm and the egg fertilize inside the body. So artificial insemination is a form of natural conception, but with help getting the sperm to the right place. In vitro fertilization, you are removing the eggs from the female, fertilizing them outside of the body, creating embryos in the laboratory, and then transferring an embryo back into the womb. So they're completely different. They have no relation to each other whatsoever. Okay,
artificial insemination, is that when the medical problem could possibly be with the man?
No. So in vitro fertilization is a treatment for male infertility. If a male has a sperm problem, for example, poor quality sperm or low sperm count, by washing the sperm, putting it into the womb, and expecting a natural conception, it's no different to them trying naturally. The success rate is no higher. So definitely artificial insemination is not a treatment for male fertility. IVF is a treatment for that. And there are specific forms of in vitro fertilization for people who might have a severe problem with the sperm, where we inject eggs with sperms, called ICSI, or intracytoplasmic sperm injection. But basically, insemination is mainly for things like an ovulatory disorder and the person has not conceived naturally, or you know, if they effectively you need normal sperm, and you need the fallopian tubes to be open for the eggs to be able to get to the womb, so the sperm and the egg can actually meet.
And now we must stress that both of these, artificial insemination and IVF, they both could not be successful if you do them. So they're not like a sure bet, like 100%.
There's no intervention that has 100%. Basically, however we help people to fall pregnant, we're using the same materials that nature uses. It's an egg, it's a sperm, it's the womb. So your maximum success rate is going to be the same as the age expected success rate for the female. So if you're using somebody's own eggs and they are 34, then your highest success rate is going to be the success rate of a 34-year-old for spontaneous conception, in the best case scenario, depending on what they are having the treatment for. So, you know, if we talk about success as being having a baby, I mean, pregnancy is not success. Pregnancy is a step towards success, but most people want a live birth. They want a baby at the end of the process. Then that's going to be, for in vitro fertilization, about 33% for a transfer. They might have a much higher pregnancy rate, 50%, 48%, but actually taking the baby at the end of the pregnancy, about 33%, and that so that's the same as nature. So I think sometimes people have this idea that medicine in some way has a bigger plan, that we are better at doing this. We're not. We're using the same materials, we're doing it in a different way, and therefore the success rates are phenomenal, because you're returning to what the success rate should be for a couple who might be you know, conceiving naturally if there wasn't a problem at that particular age.
And because I mean, naturally, if you are naturally pregnant, there could be complications at any time. Are the complications heightened when you go the artificial insemination or IVF route?
Well, the fertility population is not the general population, so they represent a group of people who have a reason to be treated, and therefore the outcomes of the pregnancies are going to be not quite as good. So they're going to have higher complication rates because of who they are, rather than any
Back
other.
to that age thing, what you're saying, where are you in your life?
So if you're dealing with a high-risk population, then your obstetric complications and things are going to be higher, your miscarriage rates might be different. And again, it depends why the person is having the treatment. If you've got somebody who purely has a blockage in their fallopian tube and they are 28 and their partner is similar age and there's good sperm, good eggs and good womb, then the success rates are very, very high. If somebody has aged prematurely and they've now run out of eggs or they have very poor egg supply, then your success rates are going to be very low. So it does depend why the person is there in the first place, or the couple are there in the first place.
All right, we're going to take an ad break. Thank you so much for your insight. These days, the family structure isn't constrained to the traditional picture of a mom and a dad. Parenthood is made possible through assisted reproductive methods such as IVF, as Dr. Clark has just said. Don't worry, we'll speak cost with him later. He'll be right back. He set the scene for today's discussion. He'll be back, like I say, in the show later. After the break, we meet Robynne Friedman, who relied on a surrogate to have her bundle of joy. We're sure to come right back on SABC 3. And welcome back. You with me, Anele, on Real Talk. Ask any mother what their experience of carrying their child to term was, and you're bound to get interesting answers depicting the highs and the lows of pregnancy. However, not everyone gets to be afforded the chance to physically carry their own child to term, and this is where a surrogate becomes a viable option. A surrogate is a woman who carries a child for another woman. The simplest analogy would be to say they are renting another woman's womb for 9 months. The Surrogacy Advisory Group is the first of its kind in South Africa, providing advice and support for both the surrogate and the future parents. We welcome now to the show Robynne Friedman, who's not only the chief advisor for the Surrogacy Advisory Group, she herself became a mother through a surrogate. Robynne, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
So I want to know all about SAG, Surrogacy Advisory Group. That's what it's called, right?
Yes, that's right.
Tell me all about it.
So the Surrogacy Advisory Group represents infertile couples in general in this country, also legally. We've recently, about 2 years ago, brought an interesting case to the Constitutional Court, which unfortunately we lost, but it was to try and expand or liberalize the law with regards to surrogacy. And we offer online advice and support or telephonic support to couples undergoing infertility and who require the assistance of a surrogate mother. And then we would coach and advise constantly on the process aspect of things in respect of persons undergoing surrogacy. So we also assist in finding surrogate mothers, and this is all done.
The middleman.
We're the middleman, and it's all done free of charge. It's a non-profit organization, so we devote a lot of our time and energy and effort into this to assist couples across the country.
When you say the laws, you'd like to have them expanded, this case that you lost, expanded in what terms? Like, what do you mean?
Well, the law is very strict with regards to the genetic material that can be used in a surrogacy situation. So when a mother is herself carrying her own child, she's then entitled to use a donor egg and a donor sperm, as provided she's carrying the child herself. But as soon as you have to resort to the assistance of a surrogate mother, the law specifically states in the Child Care Act, in the Children's Act, that you have to use the gametes or the eggs or the sperm of either the mother or the father in the surrogate mother. It cannot be a donor egg and a donor sperm in a surrogate mother.
Okay, so I'm going to put it in Anele terms there, which is very layman terms. So basically, if I have a surrogate, right, my husband and I are trying to conceive and we can't conceive and we get a surrogate, the sperm has to come from my husband and not a donor.
That's correct. Yes, it has to be either your egg or your husband's sperm. And the problem,
one
or the other.
It has to be ours.
Correct. You could get an egg donor and use your husband's sperm and use it in a surrogate mother, but we're not allowed to use what we call double donor gametes. So donor egg and donor sperm. Now the difficulty comes into play when you have a single parent who wants to undergo surrogacy.
And she doesn't have an egg.
Correct, and she doesn't have a partner. So what do you do then? Then she can't have a child via surrogacy. And if she's too old to adopt, she's not going to be able to have children.
Okay, so why, and I don't know if you'll be able to answer this, if you can't just say, look, I'm not on the other team, I don't know. Why is it being fought? I get what your side is saying. What's the other side saying?
Well, the other side is saying that, you know, it goes back to this question of designer babies, and are you now creating a designer child when you're using donor egg and donor sperm in a surrogate mother? Mm-hmm. And they also, they put a lot of reliance, the Constitutional Court put a lot of reliance on genetics and the importance of that being in the best interests of a child, having a genetic relationship to either of the parents and knowing where their genetic origins came from. For example, if you know, at least they can then relate to the mother donating her own egg. Mm-hmm. And that whole aspect of genetic origins was raised through the Constitutional Court. Mm. And they felt it was in the best interest of the child.
Mm. And I understand you got your child through a surrogate.
Yes, that's right.
So how did you meet the surrogate? Were you already running this organization?
No, it actually all happened to me. I started surrogacy about 15, 16 years ago. I was a bit of an unknown entity. I didn't know anybody at the time who had wanted to use a surrogate or who was in need of a surrogate mother. And I started doing my own research into surrogacy, and what I initially did 15 years ago was I realized that the only way I'm going to find a surrogate mother was to put word out about my need, and I put word out amongst friends, family, that this is my situation. And very fortunately for me, 15 years ago, somebody in my law firm at the time approached me, and my bookkeeper, and she said to me, look, my daughter's very keen to assist you. And she came forward, and to cut a story short, I went through 2 surrogacies before I was able to, 2 failed surrogate moms, and then we only fell pregnant with using a 3rd surrogate mom. And I think that was because things were not as sophisticated, 16 years ago with surrogacy, and I then changed fertility clinics, moved there with a 3rd surrogate mother, and fortunately, first time we fell pregnant. 10 years later. Do you have to
pay a surrogate mother?
You're not allowed to pay a surrogate mother in terms of our law. So when I did surrogacy, which was prior to 2010, so on the 1st of April 2010, the Children's Act regulating surrogacy came into play, which completely prohibits payment for surrogacy. So when you're using terms womb for rent, that's not legal in South Africa. We don't rent wombs. Surrogate mothers come forward charitably because they want to give the parents the gift of a child.
But you could make their life comfortable because you want the person carrying your child, to drive a nice car, live in a nice house.
Legally, definitely not, unfortunately.
Come on.
But when I did surrogacy prior to 2010, there was no law, so you could enter into agreements with your surrogate mom to pay her or not to pay her, or to at least cover medical costs and make her slightly comfortable.
And what was your concern? Because I know that at the end of this, there's great joy, but obviously there's hurdles. What was your concern throughout the whole surrogacy thing?
I think the most important thing is to find the right surrogate mother, because I learned from experience that my 2 previous surrogates were not really the right sort of people that I could trust to be reliable. You want to make sure that your surrogate mother is going to be taking her vitamins, that she's not smoking, drinking, taking alcohol, that she's not even subjected to secondary smoke. You want to make sure that she's as relaxed as possible throughout the pregnancy, and that she attends all her doctor's appointments. So I think, the most important aspect of the surrogacy process is trust, and also that she's psychologically capable of carrying this child, and that she's going to be able to relinquish the child to you once the baby's born.
And do you run a risk of, let's say I'm your surrogate, and then at 8 months I feel attached to the child and say you can't have the child any longer? Are there legal ramifications? Are you back legally?
There's 2 scenarios that we need to look at. So if you are not using the genetic material of the surrogates, in other words, if you're not using the surrogate's own eggs, then you will never be at risk for that, because our law is very clear on that aspect.
That's not her child.
That will never be her child. Okay, and she cannot claim any rights or responsibilities to that child at any point in time. Okay. But if you are relying on your surrogate to contribute her own genetic material, and you're using the surrogate mother's own eggs, then you're entering into what we call, what is everybody knows as a traditional surrogacy arrangement. And in those instances, she can potentially claim rights to the child. So she has a 60-day cooling off period within which to decide whether or not she's going to notify the court to keep the child. So that's why we try and avoid those traditional surrogacy arrangements, because they are very risky. And you know, if your surrogate mother does become bonded to the child in utero during the pregnancy, then you're going to be in for a difficult time legally.
I think a lot of people want to get hold of you to ask you more questions about this. Where do they get hold of you?
They can go onto my website, onto the website of the Surrogacy Advisory Group, or they can look at Robynne Friedman Attorneys, because I'm a specialist surrogacy lawyer. So,
all right. Thank you so much. You enlightening, absolutely enlightening. Those were some interesting insights from Robynne Friedman of the Surrogacy Advisory Group. A little later in the show, we'll talk about the long-time controversial topic, designer babies. Robynne actually touched on it. Are we indeed playing God when it comes to choosing whether we want a boy or a girl, or we prefer them to have blue eyes over brown eyes? All of that and more coming up on Real Talk. Welcome back, you with Real Talk, and today we're enlisting the help of experts to provide us with all we need to know on assisted reproductive options for any woman who faces challenges to conceive naturally. Did you know every woman is born with a finite number of eggs that will make up her reproductive cycle from puberty, where she will lose an egg each month during ovulation? In the event that a woman is unable to rely on her own eggs for fertilization, an egg donor could be the ideal solution to help the woman fall pregnant. Boitumelo Motswenyane is one such woman who donated her eggs to help another woman have a baby. She is joined by Tanya Rubin, representing the Nurture Egg Donor Program. Welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you.
You gave your eggs. How does somebody ask you for an egg? Like, do they take you for dinner? Like, do they take you on holiday?
No,
you got spa day? Hey, can I have your egg?
No, I actually offer my eggs. Yeah, so I go online and I fill in a profile with Nurture. So that's when I did everything, all the details that were needed, and then I was selected.
Okay, so you are the selector then, Tanya.
Yeah, so egg donation in South Africa is anonymous. So people can't approach someone and ask them to donate eggs. So exactly like Boitumelo said.
Is that illegal?
It's illegal at the moment. Okay. So people, unless it's a known donation where someone brings a family member or a friend and they want someone to donate an egg. But if they're going through an agency, they would then go online, fill out a long application and apply then to be an egg donor. And then anonymously, recipients would then go online as well and come to through our agency, through our website, and select the type of donor that they're looking for. And
so so what I'm hearing you is donation, so you don't get paid to do it.
You do get paid. So legally, a donor is compensated 7,000 Rand, which is to pay her for her time, her effort, going up and down to the clinic. They're required to visit the fertility clinics 6 to 7 times in order for the whole process. So they have to get paid 7,000 Rand from the recipients.
So I want to speak to now you as a person.
Yeah.
Psychologically, what is your decision around that? Did you have a friend who was struggling because I mean, there must be some sort of emotional tie between you and women who cannot conceive, right?
Yeah. No, my experience was I have a 2-year-old boy. So
me too.
Yeah. So the experience and the joy of having a child, you know, I just wanted to give another woman an opportunity to have that joy and that feeling, that experience. So that for me was the reason why I actually donated.
Do your donors have to have had a child before?
No.
No, so
no.
you could...
So anyone can be a donor. They need to be between the ages of 18 and 33. They are screened at the point of being chosen. So they come through for screening. Donors, although they're between the ages of 18 and 33, there are certain factors that would not allow a person to donate.
Like?
So certain genetic abnormalities, anything that is hereditary, they're not allowed to donate. If there's any disease that can be passed down through their eggs to someone else, they're not allowed to donate. Okay. If a donor is on any type of medication, certain types of medication they're able to donate with, but if there is some type of psychological background to them, they're not allowed to donate. So, and also BMI is a very important thing, so their body mass index is important. And again, like I said, between the ages of 18 and 33, donors over that age, 33 is not old, but in terms of donating eggs for their own fertility, they're not allowed to donate over that age.
In terms of counseling, do you go through like therapy? Are you sure? Right.
Yeah, we did do that. My first initial appointment was with a psychologist just to check if I'm okay with the process, explain to me what's going to be done, what's what. So that's been done before.
What did your family and friends say? Because, you know, they're the naysayers. No, what are you doing?
I actually told my parents, and then they were actually supportive.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
pretty great.
Yeah.
And do you plan on having more kids?
Of course, I have 2 more to go.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Girl, you better get to it. You better get to it. And when you are screening them, you know, for the psychological side, what are you looking out for? Like, because, you know, people don't come in with a twitch in the eye. You're like, yeah, this one's not right. Like, what are you looking out for?
Well, I think the important thing is to make sure that the donor is stable in what she's saying. You need to understand what their motivation is. I mean, there is probably a percentage of donors that do it for the financial side, that they get the 7,000 Rand. But I think on the whole, donors are an amazing representation of the population. They are girls that really want to help. They've either been through something themselves, they have, like Boitumelo, they have had their own children and just want to help. Just want to help the couples out there. There have been so many recipients that I've had to deal with and have had to counsel over the years of dealing with infertility that they are so appreciative of the donors that have come through. So the donors are really out there to assist and help couples that are struggling with infertility. So I think when you're screening them, you're wanting to make sure that they are motivated, that they're committed, that they are going to stick to the process, that they're going to be committed, that they're going to go to the appointments, and that they're able to be dedicated to the process from start to finish, because it's not just going in, giving an egg and leaving. They have to attend the appointments at the clinic and go for at least 6 appointments to the clinic, so they have to be committed and dedicated.
What happens in those 6 appointments? Are you getting vitamins? How do they like prep you up for it?
You actually are on the first appointment. They actually do a scan just to check everything is fine, and then you go on medication, for like 2 weeks. And then you go back again, and then for the next 4 appointments, they do scans just to see if the eggs are growing well and whatnot. And then you do inject yourself for a couple of days, maximum of, let's say, 12 days.
Okay.
Self-inject yourself at home. And then after maybe the 7th, 8th appointment, that's when the procedure takes place.
Is any part of the process painful besides the injecting at home?
It is, but you need to, look at the bigger picture and say, there's a baby coming out of here. So yeah, but
which is it's not supposed to be painful.
No, but it's not really that painful.
What? It's just a little over uncomfortable.
Yeah, because you're injecting yourself.
Oh, okay. But the actual process in retrieving the egg from your body.
No, you can't feel a thing because you're sleeping.
Okay.
Yeah, you're asleep.
All right.
The clinics use conscious sedation, so the donor is sleeping once the eggs are being retrieved. And also in terms of the injections, it's not those big injections that you think of. So it's tiny little injections that are used in order to stimulate the ovaries to get the eggs to grow.
Okay.
So it's designed in such a way that the donors go through very little pain in order to assist someone.
Is there a limit to how many times you can donate your eggs?
Yes, so at the moment donors are allowed to donate 6 times in total, or however many times before they reach the age of 33. If they've donated once and they're now 33, then they're not able to donate after that.
Okay. And for you, do you not like sit and wonder, I wonder where this little person is that I helped conceive out there?
No, I guess I'm not aligned in that space of thinking.
Yeah.
So no, I don't really think about it.
And you said it's anonymous, so we don't get to meet the couple. You don't, it's come to the clinic and then that's it.
Yeah, so at the moment recipients sign up on the website and they're able to then choose a donor that is anonymous, and donors don't know where their eggs are going because it's anonymous donation.
I think it's great.
Yeah.
How old are you?
22.
Yo, girl, you 5 more times, eh? Plus your own 2. Thank you so much for your time, Boitumelo. Thank you so much for your time, Tanya. Once again, thank you to Boitumelo Motswenyane for sharing her experience of being an egg donor, and Tanya Rubin from the Nurture Egg Donor Program. Stay tuned. Up next, we introduce you to a facility who have been committed since 1984 to ensuring that you arrive as a patient and you leave as a parent. Come back to us. And welcome back. We're getting real today about the challenges some people face to conceive naturally and what, thanks to modern medicine and technology, is out there to help. Unavailable to previous generations, fertility treatment options now play a big part of all our futures, from sperm and egg donations to all you need to know about freezing your eggs should you wish to be like, say, Madonna or Janet Jackson and have a baby at 50 years old. Well, it is all possible now. Representing Africa's largest frozen egg bank since 1984, I now welcome Calista Hardwick Hardwick from Vita Lab, and Dr. Nicholas Clark is back on the couch to talk to us again. So I'm going to come to you now, and I love your enthusiasm. But
Yes.
I have a question, and everyone is asking, how much does it cost, artificial insemination or IV?
Look, I think it's very difficult to give a specific cost because there are variables, but artificial insemination is a relatively inexpensive treatment because probably the laboratory side of it, which is the preparation of the sperm, would be the most expensive part, and you're talking in the region of a few £1,000 basically to do an artificial insemination. In vitro fertilization has different forms. There's the two forms I talked about earlier with, in a sense, the classical in vitro fertilization where there's natural fertilization of eggs, and then there's what we call ICSI, which is where you inject, and there's a cost difference between the two. But we're talking in the region of 60, 70, 80,000 and whatever, depending on how the treatment goes. There are many, many variables. It's very difficult to be general. One would want to look at people's specific needs, but it's not a
medical
cheap
aid
process.
doesn't cover any of this.
Well, at this point in time, most of the medical aids don't cover. There is one medical aid in this country that does contribute a portion to IVF, but there are ongoing talks to try to bring them on board.
All right, Calista.
Yes.
As we were walking on you, you were
Yes.
like, just carry on. Just say exactly what you were saying.
Sure. I was basically saying that I was so excited to see a talk show that is focusing on this topic because it's such a real topic and there's so many misconceptions out there on what is fertility, what is infertility, what's available in South Africa, do I need to go overseas for this, how expensive is it, who's it available to, who does it affect, all of these types of questions that are just not answered and spoken about enough. So we love these kind of talk shows where we get to put a little bit of a light on it and some exposure. The statistics we play around with is that generally 1 in 6 couples may need assistance in falling pregnant. So this is definitely something that's very relevant to a lot of people's lives. And pretty common. And now, because of the Madonnas and all of those celebrities, they're seeing women who are in their late 40s, early 50s, who are having their own children. That's what's being broadcast. And they think, oh, well, I can wait. I can pursue my career. I can pursue education.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch, they got technology on their side.
Correct. We don't know that for sure, obviously, but this is definitely something that needs to be looked at. This is why there are egg donation programs. Vita Lab has been around since 1984, and we've seen that the general age of the population who's coming to us for assistance, they are advancing on in age for their first or second children. So that's above the age of 35. And sometimes those eggs are no longer viable or they don't have a high reserve and they need to look at the option of an egg donation. And we're really wanting to push fertility preservation because now in this modern technology where you have access to Google, you have access to all these treatments, take control of your life, take control of the biological clock and freeze your eggs, freeze your sperm. If you're a couple, freeze embryos when you are still younger and more within your reproductive window.
Okay, so that's what y'all do. You guys store our eggs.
So we do basically everything. So we have 5 medical specialists or fertility reproductive medicine specialists. It's a big practice, so we do have cryopreservation facilities. So we are able to store your sperm and eggs and embryos, but we also do all the treatments. We do insemination, we do IVF, we do egg donation, sperm donation, surrogacy. We, as the saying said, we hope that you'll arrive as a patient and leave as a parent. And whatever that means in between, we are there with you in that journey.
Okay, so doctor, could I come to you with my frozen egg that I froze whenever and say, okay, do the thing, it's time now, I want that baby?
So I think basically, like has been said now, most of the fertility clinics will offer a freezing program. MedFem's been offering a freezing program for many years. We've been doing a lot of things in the background that I think people are just not aware of. So egg freezing it has become technically a lot more successful than it was. It took longer to get the same success rates than with freezing embryos or freezing sperm. So it's a relatively newer technology, but it's been available for many years now. So I think that, basically I would strongly support that people do freeze their eggs at a young age. I think
I've been hearing
it's
that
a
a lot.
discussion that, really should be, even at school level, fertility should be a discussion. People have life orientation programs and all these sorts of things, and it would be good for people, for you know, particularly young women, to look at freezing eggs, potentially males freezing sperm. So yeah, I think the idea of preserving fertility is a very real topic, and we would encourage, as has been said, strongly that people come along and that they talk about it.
Can I just say that education, we feel as well, should really be in at that school level. The amount of young women and even the older women who arrive at our facility looking for assistance don't know that basic biology, that their eggs are aging with them, that they only did start out with a certain complement of eggs, and that this is growing with them, and they are losing eggs every month.
And that's natural.
And that is natural. There's nothing wrong with them. And this was just not something that was ever communicated to them. And they thought, oh, well, I'm having regular periods, so everything's fine. That's what that means. Everything's definitely fine. I can go in and conceive. So there's these basic misconceptions from a biology level that really should get educated at a school level, or even in varsity programs, just to get education out there as to what's available, why is it needed, and what's happening in my body.
So basically, the whole biological clock ticking thing, it's your egg. So you could say freeze it, and then at 45 years old and 50 years old, just put it back in your body and then let it grow again.
No.
There's nothing outside of your egg in your body where at 50 years old is a complication towards you carrying a baby.
No, there is definitely. So also, I think this is also it where you're referring to a singular egg. And it is multiple eggs, right? You start off with hundreds of thousands, and then that decreases throughout puberty and as you're getting older.
Yes.
And every cycle you're losing multiple numbers of eggs, not just the one egg that's ovulating. And with assisted reproduction, we are using that medication like what the donor used to stimulate her body to get more than one egg out of that cycle so that we can utilize that. And with the frozen eggs, when you are having them replaced, or when you are now ready to have a child, you are not placing the egg back. So you would need to go through the type of in vitro fertilization, or specifically ICSI, because those eggs have been frozen, and now we need to fertilize them in the lab and then replace an embryo for you to then have your child.
There's a very important point, okay, that your fertility halves between the age of 38 and 40. So if you look at the graph of decline, if somebody comes along and says, I would like to freeze my eggs, we have very good models to tell them this is the number of eggs that you need to freeze in order to have a live birth, or a number of live births. And to give you an example, at the age of 45, pregnancy rates are pretty much zero. So eggs between 43 and 45, the pregnancy rates from using one's own eggs are pretty much zero. You would need something like 60 eggs in order to have a potential chance, and there's technically no way that you would be able to retrieve 60 eggs from somebody at that age, because they would have had a decline in the numbers and all the rest of it. So quality of eggs declines. So if somebody freezes their eggs at the age of 25 or 30, then they retain the same pregnancy rate at the age that they froze their eggs. So when they are 40 or 30, 38 or whatever it is, then they are effectively freezing their age and time. And this is key. So if people realize this, another way of putting it is, if you do in vitro fertilization on a 38-year-old, it's about 3 or 4 times more expensive to get them pregnant than a 32-year-old. A 6-year gap, same treatment, different outcome. And this is key concept. So people should freeze eggs at the earliest possible age. The minute they think about it, they should freeze them. So it's a hot topic.
Sure. Would you find that, because I was reading up on this, and then there was like a specific paragraph that said that sometimes the egg and the sperm are not genetically compatible?
No, this is not true.
Okay. Tell me why I'm lying.
It's one of the myths.
Okay.
There's people, generally, the idea that people are incompatible in terms of making babies is mythical.
Ne?
Yes.
So, Nje, anytime is tea time. We've got an egg, we've got some sperm, we're good to go.
That's bottom line is as long as the egg is healthy, the sperm is healthy,
We're
there's
good.
a chance. Yeah.
How much does the freezing cost?
Sure. So
Starts from, because I know it could.
yeah, it can definitely range, and the amount of medication that you need to stimulate to get the eggs,
Yes.
that all has a big factor, because the medication is expensive. but the procedure can cost you between 20 to 40,000. It all really depends. It also depends on how many we're freezing. So if it's a really young lady and we get lots and lots of eggs, and it's lots and lots of paddles or straws that we need to freeze, the pricing will change. So it is something we do need to work out once we've evaluated. Also to get to that number that the doctor was speaking about. So they might need 2 or 3 or 4 cycles to get a good number of eggs frozen, so that we can confidently say you can use these eggs to have 1 or 2 pregnancies.
And your archiving system must be better than Google, obviously, because you need to make sure that I get my egg when I come back.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's multiple checks in place. So there's computer programs, there's also human checking, there's multiple checks in place. I know that is also one of the misconceptions.
I know, people are like,
that I'm going to get someone
I heard
else's
somebody
embryo.
who heard from somebody else who heard down the road on the street when I caught the train to the other side that woman got the wrong egg. You're like, yeah, sure, all right.
No.
Okay,
no.
thank you so much for your time, guys. Calista, thank you for your time. Dr. Clark, really, you've been wonderful. Thank you so much. We are getting school today. You just gotta love modern medicine and the world of science. To wrap up our conversation on assisted reproductive systems, we attempt to unpack where exactly the line is or should be that some scientists have attempted to cross when it comes to the matter of designing the perfect baby. Why is this such a contentious topic? We'll find out after the break. And welcome back to Real Talk. Part of the joys of having biological children, many have said, lies in watching these little beings morph into miniature versions of their parents. But reproductive science is fast evolving, and nowadays parents are afforded the option, costly as it may be, to pick and choose some genetic traits they would like their offspring to have, causing huge ethical and religious debates. Some schools of thought are critical of science's ability to engineer people. Also, is this purely a self-serving option, or are there medical benefits to being able to design your perfect baby? We welcome Chief Medical Officer for Genesis Genetics, Dr. Yvonne Holt. Now, the layman calls it designer babies.
Yes.
Scientifically, how would you describe it?
Okay, so just to set things straight first, we don't design babies.
It's not like
there's a
cheese,
global
mushrooms.
No.
Like designing a pizza.
There's a global moratorium on this that prohibits this practice. There's much research in the field, but we cannot choose characteristics of our children. Not yet. Engineering, genetic engineering is being researched and is successful in certain instances. Just to explain what genetic engineering is, so each cell in our body contains DNA, and on our DNA we have codes in our genes that make up our genes on how to produce certain proteins in our body. So now this code will say basically how you function, how your organs function, how your organs grow, how you look, etc. Scientists understand this code and these genes, and they've also worked out how to cut out certain genes and place other ones in that place. So, and the motivation behind that was really to treat disease. So in the news you would have heard about CRISPR, perhaps. CRISPR is the newest technology that is able to enter a human cell, cut out a gene that you do not want, perhaps so a gene that is...
A cancerous gene that runs in my family.
Gene, exactly, a cancerous gene. A gene that causes sickle cell anemia or that causes cystic fibrosis. To cut that out and in its place put the code that should exist.
Okay.
So researchers are able to do that. But it is still, the science is still in its infancy. This CRISPR is still a blunt tool. We don't know, so we know what it can do, but we don't know what repercussions will be in the future if that were to be done in a patient. A lot of work is still being done around that. Now, because this all came about on how can we treat diseases, people can now extrapolate that to manipulating the DNA of an egg or a sperm or an embryo.
Has it been done before?
Yes, it has.
Okay.
I'm sure it's been
And what
done
were
a
the
lot,
results?
but they, you know, in the US, I'm sure in parts of Europe, China, researchers have done work on embryos.
I
don't know.
China. You were like China, like those guys know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing. They're very clever.
Don't mess with those guys.
But if you read any of the articles, the literature hasn't been published on what they've done with these embryos. Very covert. Because of there's massive ethical implications here. It would be great to, they're looking to research to make humans immune to certain infections.
So there is a good.
There is,
the initial concept was for good.
Yes.
And obviously as humans we'll find anything and we'll ruin it. So that's what's happening now.
There's so much technology that is used nefariously, like nuclear energy. They worked hard to do, to manipulate the atom and then created a bomb.
Okay.
So it's similar with this. There is intention to genetically engineer humans so that we do not develop dementia and Alzheimer's. That we genetically engineer humans to be immune to HIV. To genetically engineer humans to have extremely strong bones that you can never break.
So undercover as it is, and I know people at home watching you, this is the only thing they want to know from you right now.
Yeah.
So undercover as it is, including my best friend and his wife, they must be like, ask her this question. Ask her this, I'm going to ask you. Is there a way to manipulate whether you have a boy or a girl?
So you don't need to manipulate that, you can choose the embryo. So once you make embryos, you know if they're boys or girls, so you can choose a boy or a girl. But sex selection is illegal in this country.
So which country would you, asking for a friend, which country would you have to go to where you
can go to Nigeria, they allow it, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I've just been to Nigeria, they were looking at genetic testing for certain diseases, and I learned that sex selection is allowed in Nigeria.
Okay.
They used to allow it in India, but then they stopped that because of the cause of imbalance in society with people preferring male children.
We actually just touched the surface of this, I think. There's lots more to be told. Unfortunately, we just can't get around to it today. Ultimately, it's every mother and father's decision on how they wish to go about parenting. But armed with information like we've given you today, we hope that we've shown you that there is always a way. This is Real Talk. It's been great. Goodbye.
That's cheeky.